My mother-in-law strictly wore the sarung kebaya. Okay, so basically she wore the sarung kebaya. Although her children wore saris and Punjabi suits, and I think I never saw his sisters in sarung kebaya. And the kebaya they wore is not what you see us wearing today. The sulam kebaya. Theirs was also sulam kebaya, but made of cotton, soft voile cotton. And the embroidery wasn't so elaborate. It was at the hemline, at the sleeves, at the neckline. Okay, but they also wore the keronsan, and they wore flowers in their head, and without fail, the women will wear a bindi. Okay, to show the difference between the Peranakan Cina and the Peranakan Indian. The women wore bindi.
Now, on the attire, basically, if you look at the attire, there's three pieces. We have one, a shirt, a long dress, a sarung. It can be also like a vesti, and then we have a tunde, and the tunde can be used as a headdress also, and it can use for a side dress also. For Chetty Melaka Chetty, because the attire they use almost like a vesti, then they were sarung was so used in India those days. They brought along the sarongs down here, and they palikat, the kain pelikat they call it. We call it kain pelikat also lah. But today we got all this design coming up and all these things, and we wore it because we feel that we are merchants, and we still maintain that kind of status of heritage lah.
This generation of kebaya wearing Chetty Melaka in Singapore sort of, to me, ended in the 60s. By the 70s, they were still wearing, but the younger generation like me, my sister, we were not wearing Chetty Melaka clothes. The only clothes I wore at Chetty Melaka was, I think there was a photograph of me and my sister. My sister was wearing a pawade. I was wearing a vesti. My father used to wear a sarong, but I just didn't like wearing sarong. I too much hair. I didn't like it. But basically, it's sort of this wearing of kebaya is the older generation, those born in the 50s and maybe late 50s. Now we are reviving it, and some of our new generation are asking their children to wear kebayas. But to me, it's not about the clothes. It's about the mindset.
And our people at that time they really hold the culture that we have. For example, our nenek, our parties all, they wear kebaya panjang with sanggul tiga and the cucuk sanggul and the bimpo here, and they makan sirih, they ada tembakau semua. So, and the men, our tatas, they wear the sarung, they come to the temple. The younger ladies, they come with their baju kebaya pendek, and then they have, of course, if they're married, they have the kungumum and the konde with the maligapu and all that. It was very beautiful then.
Actually, when I was young, I really felt that they were like from two different clans, that kind of thing. because how do I say? Because whenever I go to a temple, that it was only in a temple where I realized that, oh, really? I mean, like, why is my grandma dressed like that, and why is my father's side dressed like that, and why is my mother's side mom dressed like that? But then, how do I say? I realized that that's the part where my grandma strongly believes that her dressing does not term her as a different person in terms of Hinduism. Okay, she used to use the baju kebaya. It looks really Malay style. So the baju kebaya, and she used to have that the klosang, yeah. She used to have that klosang, the gold klosang and silver ones, and then she used to tie a bun and had that the traditional I can't recall that long pin, yeah, that long pin, and then her her blouses are like her tops are very fanciful, very fanciful, and I used to like her batik and all those things. So I really, as in, I really like how my grandma used to not give in her culture, as in how she was brought up. And yeah, even though she didn't know how to speak Tamil that well and everything, she always told us that I'm by how to say, by birth I'm actually a Hindu, but this is my culture, so I represent my culture and I should be proud of where I come from. Yeah, so I respect her for that. As for my grandfather, I think it's due to his modernization and his working, his cliques of friends and office and all those things. That's why he started wearing modern clothes. But I knew very well that I always liked to see their wedding photo and how different it was, how unique it was, you know, apart from traditional like South Indian wedding that happens in Singapore. From what I know, the dressing is completely different, even for the guys as well. They will use I don't know the name exactly, but all I know is the unique part was their headdresses that they used to have. Yeah, the guy equally has a headdress, as well as the bride and the groom both equally have a headdress that's so unique. And there is definitely some form of influence, Malay cultural influence or Javanese culture influence. I feel some of it's very Javanese as well, as in it comes from Indonesia. Balinese or Javanese, I'm not very sure. And for example, they have their decorations are like the decorations, their music that they used to play in a wedding.
Okay, my grandmother always wears the sarong, the kebaya, and there's one, the krochang, the metal thing. I never see my grandmother wearing sari. Always the krosang, and then there's one metal thing stick to her head and all this. Okay? Same thing, never speak Tamil, always in Malay. So no choice, I got to communicate with her in Malay and all this. So she's very loving to me.
For example, for my mother, she's purely the Chatti Belaka, where she will wear the sarung and the kebaya. At home also she will wear, normally kebaya is long sleeve, okay? So for me, what I see her, she really, from I think the day she young until she married and until now, she never leave her kebaya and sarung. But like for me, I think we are more to the modern where we, we mix like, we got wear pants, blouses, and then skirt and all that. But for my mother, I can see that she fully, purely wear this kebaya until today. She will normally have the krosang, but I think now because she a bit older, she wear with the pin only lah at home. But go out still with her krosang lah. Jewelry, don't know, for my mother, she not really fancy. So she just maybe a chain lah, a normal chain. Of course, tali, of course when she married, and then when until my father was around, then later on, of course, there's no tali lah.
I had the good fortune of having my great grandmother with me as well. So I remembered her quite vividly, and she was staying in my house. So the only thing I could remember a grandmother be or great grandmother is to wear the sarung kebaya and to have their hair pulled back with a bun, and it's a two pin or a one pin that is actually very prominent in the Peranakan culture, and a small little hair net. So I knew this because I used to play with her hair net and her pins, and because I found it quite interesting at that age. The other thing is that she will be always constantly wearing her sarong kebaya in the house. Another thing is her shoes. She always wore a very unique kind of shoes. It's like a beaded sandal, and it has a wood base basically. That's the traditional Peranakan wear. And my grandmother, which is my mother's mother, also followed the same tradition. But later on, as she grew older, she started wearing simple saris and outfits such as that. But at home, or even if we go to Malaysia, what she'll say, hey, can you go to the shop and buy for me this particular sarong or kebaya? And that is how I remember them dressing up.